On a social networking site, I came across a conversation about the nature of consciousness. And what was asked was the most simple of questions. What is it? What is consciousness? The answer is also simple. No one knows. There is no true science of consciousness. Well, you might ask, what about psychology? That's the study of the mind. Now, the phenomenon that is consciousness can be broken down into three sub-questions, if you will, depending on what aspect of consciousness you want to focus on, namely content, dimension, or structure. But there's no true science because consciousness is subjective and science is all about measuring the objective, which helps to reinforce the materialist argument. And what's fascinating is that consciousness seems to have an effect upon the structure of reality. This occurs on a quantum level because the wave function of entangled particles collapses when a measurement is observed. To put it simply, the basic building blocks of reality are in one form, then seem to be altered by the mind of the observer. Matter is altered by consciousness. Now, do I personally believe this to be so? I don't know. I've read arguments from both sides. Some see it as a great mystery, while many quantum physicists think that they have it figured out, that it isn't all that mysterious. Who knows? Science doesn't have all the answers and never will. Objective reality is just too vast, and for every question that's answered, multiple new questions arise. Don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking science. It's necessary and its contributions are overwhelming. For instance, if it wasn't for science, I wouldn't be speaking into a microphone right now, but instead shouting from a hilltop. Now, my big question when it comes to consciousness is this. Is there a greater consciousness or a master consciousness, one light, if you will, with many different reflections, such as the light of a full moon reflecting off an ocean, lake, pond, puddle, drop of water? In Hinduism, this is Brahman. Brahman is the never-changing concept of consciousness, the highest universal principle, the absolute reality. Dualistic teachings believe that Brahman is distinct from the individual soul, or Atman, whereas non-dualistic schools, such as the Tantric left-hand path, teach that Brahman and Atman are one and the same, contained within one another. Now, some may think, isn't that the right-hand path? Because the individual is united with the Supreme, the God. Understand that on the right-hand path, one is on the road toward a connection with the higher, but that higher will always be greater than you and just out of reach. That way they can keep you in the fold. While the left-hand path is the road to truth, the truth being that the potential of you becoming your own God is already there. You just need to break the shackles that the status quo and your ego mind have placed upon you. Brahman, as the greater consciousness, is the impersonal, eternal principle and first cause of the universe, or consciousness bringing about reality. As I've already stated, some believe that consciousness has an effect upon the quantum wave function. So, in a sense, Shiva, as an aspect of Brahman, brings about reality. For Shiva is consciousness that is aware of itself. When I personally meditate and do tantric breathing exercises, I dwell upon consciousness being aware of itself. I'm conscious of my consciousness. Like a mantra, I let this go over and over in my mind. Now, Shiva, as one of the three faces of Brahman, the left face, Brahma and Vishnu being the other two, is the aspect of Brahman one on the left-hand path must be connected to. He is the darkness, and darkness is much greater than light because you go blind staring at the sun. And as the dark aspect of consciousness, Shiva is divided into a male and female pair, Shiva and Shakti. And through vibrations caused by this supreme essence of consciousness, Shakti is activated. In this case, consciousness not only altered reality, but brought it into being. Think about it. This is analogous to the Big Bang. Shiva consciousness is the first cause of the universe. He does the observing, and Shakti is one with the reaction. I was asked this question by a viewer. If we are only mind and mind is all we can be certain of, then how could this mind create quantum theory, Mozart's Requiem, the Sistine Chapel, etc., if I show no abilities or talent to do so? My answer would be a simple one. How do you truly know you can't? Maybe in that other realm where lies the source of mind, anyone could create those things. Now, this person presented an argument against the philosophical position I adhere to called solipsism. This is the idea that the only thing you can be 100% certain of is your personal consciousness, mind, psyche, whatever you want to call it. I think, therefore I am. This point of view I bring up when people insist upon the reality of physical manifestations in religious and/or occult practices. How do you know it's real if one can't be certain that reality isn't an illusion? This is why I delve into the psychological. Because, simply put, psyche is certainty. But, someone may ask, how can that be so if the thoughts of a madman are not certainty? My answer would be, how do we know it isn't? The mind of the madman proves my point. His delusional manifestations are real to him. Look around you. Look at this world in the year 2020. Are you certain you're not mad? But if all is an illusion, one may ask, then other people aren't real. But I know others are real because I see them showing emotions, emotions that would have to come from a psyche. Well, everyone, or anyone for that matter, could be philosophical zombies or NPCs, if you will. Because we can't experience someone else's mental states to truly know if they're conscious. We don't know that what we see as emotion is, in truth, programmed reactions in a simulation. But You may also ask, are we truly the thinker of our thoughts? What if this, what you call mind, comes from somewhere else, but allows us to think we are one with that mind? Like when I listen to a podcast on my Bluetooth speaker, the person speaking is not the Bluetooth. The source, the voice, the mind is coming from somewhere else, which is transmitted to my phone and then to my speaker. This is an argument I've heard before. Now, the mind wanders endlessly. It drifts from one thought to another like a continuous slideshow, sometimes cohesive, often chaotic. But there still is a source. They're our thoughts, thus one with that source. So, if all is an illusion, why bother? Why bother reading, learning, doing anything? The reason why you bother is because it's all about experience. If this is a fantasy, an illusion, a simulation, we should still partake in the experience of this, whatever it is. So, what does this have to do with the left-hand path? Everything. The left-hand path is about you and what goes on in the psyche. It's not about what's outside us or what might be greater than us, because that may not exist. But your mind, that does exist. Come to think of it, you know what? I don't really care if someone chooses to believe in the gods and monsters, angels and demons, as long as it enriches the experience. Go right ahead. Greetings to you, my friends, foes, and faithful minions. I got this question from one of my viewers. Thomas, would you provide us methods to bring forth the subconscious? What kind of meditation, ritual, and/or practices do you recommend? I've read works such as Crowley's Book 4, Jung's Red Book, and Hall's Secret Teachings of All Ages. I practice sigil chaos magic and some meditation. I've tried to just do my own left-hand path thing and have attempted to remember what brings me joy from my subconscious, and still feel depressed, lost, and frustrated. Are there specific works you've written that go deeper into practice? My simple basic answer to this individual would be to manifest. Now, I know that sounds like some bullshit new age word, but that's what you should do to understand the subconscious. That is, to begin to understand the subconscious. And here's what works for me. Okay, now get a piece of paper or a canvas or whatever and just start drawing. do it quickly. Don't think about it. Just draw or paint. I know a lot of you would say you can't do it. You don't know how to draw, you don't know how to paint, but that doesn't matter. What you're basically doing is coughing up, regurgitating what's inside, so then you can look at it, examine it. You'll do a clinical observation of what you've psychically ingested that's made you feel the way you do. Understand? And what you'll have before you is a two-dimensional physical representation of what's going on inside. It's a lot like automatic drawing. Now, ask yourself, what is that drawing or painting telling you? If you can't figure it out, if you can't figure out what it's telling you specifically, then try to examine how it makes you feel. What feelings do you get from it? Come up with a word, one word. Now, let's say that word is anger. Since you, the individual asked this question, appear to have studied the occult, create a ritual, a personal ritual based around anger, let's say. Make sure it's dark, make sure it's evil, but try not to do anything that'll get you arrested, all right? Before you do that though, before you perform that ritual, I recommend doing breath work, heavy yogic breathing. Now, I didn't create these breathing techniques. I'm not gonna try to take credit for it. You can go on YouTube and you can find plenty of videos on breath work. I recommend them. Now, here's one way of going about it. Okay, do or perform 30 deep breaths in and out. Make sure you're relaxed though before you start. You're in a relaxed position. You don't want to be standing. Now, after you do 30 rapid, heavy, deep breaths, hold your breath for a minute. After that minute, then exhale, and then hold it for 15 seconds. Do this for 3 rounds. Now, each round, try to hold your breath a little longer. Maybe you can hold it for a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes, maybe 2.5 minutes, whatever. Now, the reason why I suggest yogic breathing is you're tapping in to the primal parts of your brain. And I stress very much so the primal on this channel. As I like to say, Sinistrism is about finding the primal aspects of the left-hand path. Primal in history, primal in the psyche, thus obtaining truth. And what you're literally doing when you do this breath work, and this is physiological, this has nothing to do with woo-woo, is you're triggering dormant aspects of the most primitive parts of your brain, because your brain thinks it's in distress, or it is in distress. You are actually tapping into the primal. Now, when you get to the last round of the 3 and you're holding your breath, meditate. Now, a lot of people have a hard time meditating because you cannot not think about something. Now, I have a shortcut for this. As you meditate, become conscious of the fact you are conscious. Basically, think about what consciousness is. Focus on that for that minute, minute and a half, 2 minutes, whatever. However long you can hold your breath. I promise you, you will reach a calm state, because that's where you want to be when you begin your personal ritual. You want to start in a neutral place, because if it's about anger, you don't want to start off angry. You want to build up. You want that gradual intensity. Now do this. Do the automatic drawing, if you will, the breath work, the ritual. Do this on a regular basis, and you will find a certain peace. I guarantee it. But it's important that this ritual is very dark, because you need, and I stress this a lot, you need to face that darkness. I recently got this question from a viewer. What does the left-hand path have to say about the sense of oneness, common effect when using psychedelics? Now, this is a very interesting question. To begin with, I'm all for hallucinogens, but when done responsibly, kept out of the hands of children, and utilized as a means to get a better understanding of the self. Hallucinogens have an unfair stigma, but luckily researchers have ignored that negative press and have recently discovered their amazing benefits. For example, the positive effects of psilocybin in treating PTSD, depression, and dementia. Also, this is interesting, there's the stoned ape hypothesis proposed by Terence McKenna, where the possible consumption of psilocybin by Homo erectus may have helped to escalate the development of the human brain. It's also been theorized that it was the use of hallucinogens that first opened our eyes to the spiritual world, which led to not only religious thought, but also to the occult sciences. But getting back to the viewer's question, I came up with this quick response. What I believe is, since we're all part of the collective unconscious, psychedelics help to cleanse the doors of perception, thus allowing an awareness of that fact. Left-hand path practices, though, allow us to retain the ego within this realm, where on the right-hand path, you do not. It would be like popping a water balloon in a tub of water. What happens to that water that was in the balloon? That would be the right-hand path. Now, what the hell did I mean by all this? To clarify, let's try another analogy, one I've used before. Let's say the collective unconscious is a vast ocean and we're ships or boats on the surface, our egos the captains of that ship. And below the surface, creatures swim about from ship to ship, sometimes benignly, other times ramming our vessels.
These beings are the avatars of the archetypes. They're outside us and at the same time in us and are greater than we are. Hence we call them gods or monsters or angels or demons. Our objective, though, is not to allow them to sink our ship and then swallow us whole. On the left-hand path, we retain our awareness of the self, thus allowing us to observe and learn instead of being devoured and lost. That's what happens on the right-hand path. There's no objective observation if you're consumed. And hallucinogens may just help us to get a better picture of what's going on under the surface of the collective unconscious, aiding us in obtaining a clearer picture of the masks the avatars of the archetypes are wearing, and thus leading us to a better understanding of that realm that is superior to the one we find ourselves in presently.
So, in conclusion, did we answer the question of consciousness? No, and we can't. It's too subjective. It is the essence of subjectivity. Because the only thing, the absolute only thing you can be 100% sure of is your own personal consciousness. Until next time.